What did the pirate say at his 80th birthday party?
Oh God, I don't know, and I'm scared.
Aye, matey.
We're going to get going. It is June 10th, 2026, and we're going to get to know SharePoint Advanced Management. Carrie is not with us today, helping with her mom, so she can't join us, but the rest of the gang is all here, and we have lots of slides for Todd, so it's a great day for Todd. All right, getting to know SharePoint Advanced Management, we're going to start with what is SAM, and then we're going to talk about how you get it, because that's important, and then what are the core admin scenarios that SAM helps you with, and then this new SharePoint admin agent, and what role does that take in this whole picture? We'll talk some guidance and best practices as we go, Q&A, as always with Ask Sympraxis, please just put either speak up or put your questions in the chat, and we'll try to address them as we go. All right, with that, let us move on. Let's start with Mark Cashman. Talk us through what's SharePoint Advanced Management. You're going to sort of put your old hat back on and do the Microsoft way and the way Sympraxis looks at it. So let's get that.
Yeah, this will be a balance of outward messaging for Microsoft that I think just starts to ground the sort of what is the territory that SAM falls into. It's obviously an admin tool. It's obviously advanced. And I think it takes its roots in not just content, but some of the things that you can do on your own with a significant amount of lifting, reports, digging through logs, automating some things, but it really takes it beyond that for specifically managing content. And I think before getting into some of the messaging here, I think the broader scope of content is the important thing to remember. You're managing sites, you're managing content, you're managing access, you're really governing what it is that people are doing, at least getting great visibility into what's happening. But where they put it in the messaging from a content governance broader landscape is in that middle area, the readiness, getting you ready so that you can be reactive in fixing things or be proactive in making sure that things aren't getting out of control. But the 3 R's that they revolve around, and this would be where you put your pirate hat on and say, our relevance, our readiness, and our resilience. But when you package it all together, it's obviously a lot. When you go from that first slide in the top right down to the bottom right, it breaks it out into just a bunch of capabilities, some of which we're going to cover today, some of which don't technically fall within what you get with SAM. And you'll hear from the team the clarity of what you get with SAM when you get Copilot. There's sort of a lot of varieties, and there's licensing, and there's a whole lot of things we're going to get into. But think about when things get out of control with content sprawl, and remember, content can be a lot of things. Actual files, sites, lists, libraries, and people. What are people doing in all of these places? And it's a foundational element to help prepare for Copilot. So when you see people put on sessions, getting your ecosystem or your environment ready for Copilot, SAM is a big part of that when it comes to the SharePoint ecosystem. There's a great link here if you want an overview from Microsoft. And I'm also going to paste in one more thing that I got from our friend Bill Bear, of how he defines SAM, which is kind of a fun, cheeky way to do it. SAM, the acronym, stands for Sort All the Mess. And if you pair that with what we'll talk about in a little bit, the admin agent, it's somehow automates madness. So I'm going to leave you with that thought with Bill, move us into Derek to take us to the next level of understanding. But SAM at the highest level is a really great tool for admins to eat their eggs and ham whenever they want.
We should have gotten you a pirate hat. I didn't know if I was gonna be able to tell you to get off mute so that you could stop laughing, Derek, or not. But
I don't know.
All right.
I'm still laughing.
Can I actually tell I have a little pirate joke that I heard on a podcast that was related by the podcast host from their child the night before, and it's a very quick and simple one. But what did the pirate say at his 80th birthday party?
Oh God, I don't know, and I'm scared.
Aye, matey. I just thought it was a great joke. It takes a second. Took me about 3 beats before I got it. Aye, matey.
Yeah, 3 beats exactly.
Derek, you're up.
Can you even deliver this line? Yes, exactly.
Derek
Please
needs
send
help.
Carol.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay. I don't know if he can do it.
Breathe,
Mike,
Derek,
you want to take
breathe.
over for him?
I'm
gonna try.
He's gonna do it.
All
I
right.
can see it.
All right. Okay.
All right.
No more
So,
jokes.
Sam, SharePoint Advanced Management. Essentially, you can access this through the SharePoint Admin Center. It is in the left sort of bar with all the other junk over there. If you don't see it, you can click the Show All button, and it's got a pretty little icon that says Advanced Management. And I don't know if it's in all tenants, but it has a little Pro icon in it for my tenant, at least.
It almost
And-
stands out so much that you can't see it. Like
Exactly.
you're looking
Yeah.
in the list and you're like, where is it? It's like, oh, the one with the big bold font and the stars around it.
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
Pro, which doesn't seem to mean anything.
Anything. Yeah,
Exactly.
nothing at all.
Exactly. So what is Pro? What does that mean? And so what this actually, one of the things that's interesting about it, and Mark sort of alluded to this, is that you get different options based on the licensing that's available inside of your tenant. So if you've got Copilot enabled already, if you've got the semantic index, you get Copilot readiness reports. If you don't get those particular things lit up for you. However, one cool thing is that there is also different roles that you can assign folks to give them access to SAM. So obviously, if you're a SharePoint admin, you have access to SAM, you can run the reports. But there's an additional role called the SharePoint Advanced Management admin. And that means if you want to give, say, certain people in the organization access to SAM and SAM only, and you don't want to give them SharePoint admin access, like you can give them like a password to get in the door, but you don't want to give them the full keys to the kingdom, you can actually do that. And as reluctant as I am to say this, you can manage things with PowerShell. And Todd is going to talk a little bit about that because we got to give him something to do.
Yes.
All
Always.
right, I'm going to go laugh now.
Okay, that's a good plan. All right, so now on the next few slides, we're going to sort of drill into this list. And so since I'm sharing my slides, you can go back and forth. But basically, we're going to drill into a few of these items on the list that we think are particularly useful to highlight. And so, Mark Anderson, you're going to kick us off with change history. What is this about?
What is this about? I was staring
know.
at this.
You need to tell me.
Trying to think about what I wanted to say, and I realized that it's sort of a weird ability to have, because what it shows you is what the admins have changed. Only admins can see this report.
Okay.
So anyway, yeah. So it's in.
I would say that's a good thing if you have more than one or two admins.
It is.
That's true.
It is. No,
It is
no.
true.
I mean, it absolutely is. But it just sort of struck me as a little odd. You can't see what other people have done. You can only see what the admins have done. So there are two kinds of changes that this allows you to watch for. Things that have been changed on the organization settings. So at the tenant level, basically, what kinds of changes have happened? And obviously you have to be an admin to make those kinds of changes. So you can run a report on what the admins have been changing, and then what changes have been made in individual sites. So it doesn't go deep into the sites. It's more that sort of high level, what stuff you can do as an admin set of changes. And these both go back 180 days. So I think what this basically is doing under the covers is taking a slice at the audit log and saying, let's see what stuff that admins have done recently have been going on. This would be really, really helpful, though, if somebody says, hey, something's working really differently now, because we get questions like that all the time. It's, this worked last week, but it doesn't work now. And it's almost always because someone changed something. And so this is a way to find out, well, what is that thing that might have been changed? So very useful. I still think it's sort of funny.
Yeah, coming from a regulatory background, though, this can be super handy because if you
Absolutely.
have regulatory needs, be able to just run the change reports, export them out, keep them in the logs that you need for those compliance questions, and
Right.
that's a great use case for that,
In a
or
sense, it's a way to,
import them or whatever.
it's in a sense, it's also a way for you to document for yourself what you've been doing in your
Yeah,
tenant.
way
So if you run
easier
this,
than yeah,
you run this every
100%.
180 days, you just have to make sure that that's part of your process.
Yeah, 100%. It makes things a lot easier to document. So I think that's a good one. All right. Then we're moving on to data governance reports. So this is somewhat similar, I guess.
Oh, but so
Mark?
different. You want me to talk about this? Okay, I will.
Yes.
So
Like,
one of the things,
so prepared.
so the DAG reports, as they're commonly known by people in the know, help you understand sort of, they're in an essence, what Mark said, let's just see how things are laid out right now. In fact, I had a client ask me this morning, where were we using everyone except external users? And I knew somehow that we had a report that would let me find that. And I couldn't remember where it was. And then I looked at this slide and I remembered it's right there. So that is a useful thing to be able to figure out. There are two reports on here that help with that. The one down on the bottom right, shared with everyone except external users, shows you who's done that in the last 28 days. The one in the upper left is broader and shows you where that group is, that pseudo group is used among a bunch of other things. So if you think about this as a starting point for things like thinking about how you're going to use Purview, starting to think about rolling out Copilot, then they make a lot of sense. That recommended on that first one, I think, is very good, because it's sort of going to give you an overview across all of your sites. Where are our anomalies? Now, you get data and you still need to interpret it, but Todd will talk about some other options on that, I bet, coming up.
I sure will.
The one on the right is really helpful, site permissions for users, because you can specify individual users and see where they can get to. Now, one thing I had another client ask me about, where does this person have access? Well, if you've deleted the user, that user technically still has access to stuff because, well, it doesn't have access to stuff, but they still exist in the context of sites. So you can't actually find them with that report. That's a gotcha I figured out. If you're starting to think about rolling out sensitivity labels, and maybe you've tried them in a few places, that report will help you figure out where those labels have been applied. And sharing links on the bottom left is, again, just only looks at the last 28 days, but it shows you where those sharing links have been created so that you can start to look for some patterns. How are people actually sharing stuff? And is that what we want them to do? Internal sharing can be an issue for Copilot rollouts. External sharing can be an issue for other obvious reasons. So those are the ones on this particular screen. I think they're all very interesting. If you're a SharePoint or a global admin, I would suggest going and running these and looking at them and seeing, what's in here? What does this tell us? And having them in your back pocket for the next time that you need to answer a question like our clients ask us.
Yeah, I would lean into that as well by saying that sometimes you can even be surprised. I mean, Orchestry has a bunch of these reports and activities and stuff. And Mark, I remember not too long ago us looking at some Orchestry reports about permissions and stuff, and for sharing links specifically, and going, oh wow, I didn't know we did it that way. Oops. And we have that stuff pretty well together. So even for a site or an organization who has a pretty good handle on their permissions and their sharing and their governance, there might be some surprises in these reports. So it's definitely a good thing to look at. It'll be interesting to see how the sharing links report changes with the new hero links. That'll be interesting. Like how just visually, because it's sort of the same because it's one link versus many. But I wonder if like the quantity will go to anyway. Whatever. Be interesting to see how that might change.
I think you just brought up a point which is I think worth repeating. If your tenant's been around for a long time, you've probably had several different eras of administrators. You've just had different ways that you've done things. Nothing bad, nothing malicious or anything, but you may have, for example, site permissions that you had different theories about back when you first went into SharePoint Online. So just looking at these snapshots can really help you see if there are some of those patterns that you need to start thinking about to clean up.
Or you might find client/archive subsite that maybe has other subsites in it that you maybe decided, whoa, we forgot those were there.
I'll open this, right? We found a little trove of really ancient classic subsites that we had forgotten about, Julie and I.
Totally forgot.
Nobody else here can get blamed for this. And there was some content in there we wanted, but we had to figure out where it was. And some of these reports were helpful.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, SharePoint Lifecycle Management. Oh, it's now the Todd show. We did group you all together, didn't we? All right, everybody go home.
There we go. So SAM is huge, and as a lifelong SharePoint administrator, there are a ton of little nooks and crannies and stuff that would love to talk about, but I picked just 2 or 3 things that I think I'm the most excited about and the most applicable to the audience. The first one is the site lifecycle management bit. For years, all of us at Sympraxis have preached to our clients and to people at dinner parties and all that, scale SharePoint by site. Everything should be a new site. However your business works, if it's clients or projects or products or whatever, every one of those things should have its own site. SharePoint likes that the best. Microsoft has developed the product to scale that way. Permissions and quotas and all these things all go by site. So scale by site. The problem with that is it adds an administrative overhead and it adds a little bit of, mess for users. So this screen helps you get back some of that administrative time. If you've got a small IT shop or if you are the IT shop, this lets you both scale by site and have lots and lots, tens, hundreds of sites, but also be able to keep an eye on what those sites are doing, roll out the ones that are old, keep an eye on the ones that are using a lot of space, stuff like that. And the other thing that this will do is, I guess site lifecycle management is important for a couple of reasons. One is search relevance and Copilot relevance, because you don't want old stuff like that subsite of a subsite of a subsite that has client information in it. You don't want that mucking up your search results and your Copilot results and things like that. But the other thing is it can save you cold hard cash. Like if you are coming up on your quota for space and you don't know where all your space is going, dead sites are one easy way to delete or archive or do whatever. So Microsoft, as of late, is a big fan of the 3 pillars idea. So Mark Cashman showed it at the beginning. We've kind of got the same thing here. We've got these 3 reports that you can run: inactive sites, site ownership, and site attestation. So I'll talk a little bit about that. You can run a report about who the owners of the site are. So that gives you an idea who's responsible for it. It's a bad idea to have a site that only has one owner, because you're only, one HR decision away from that site having no owners and not knowing who to go to when that site needs something. So you want to know ahead of time before these things happen, so you can run a report on that. Inactive sites. So these are sites that, does anybody even care about these anymore? So you can run a report on that and find out, what sites are inactive. You have some knobs you can turn about what an inactive site means, what activities count as activity, what things don't. And then site attestation. This is probably my least favorite, not only because I have a hell of a time saying the word attestation, but also this is one where it just bothers. Yes, it's just, and I hate how it's becoming more and more prevalent in our job.
It is.
I just, my God. But it's one where it just pesters the site owner or the site admin and says, do you still care about this? Do you still care about this? How about now? How about now? So I'm not as big a fan of this one, but it is in there. Now, for all of these reports and all of these policies that you set up, you have some general things you can do. You can exclude sites. So if you have a site that you know is going to be inactive, that has old information that you want to make agents go against or be able to have search stuff on, you can have them excluded from these reports. Site ownership, if you know there's a site that only has one owner because it's very secure, you can exclude that from the reports. The other thing that you can control is the enforcement, like what happens when a site fails one of these policies. One of the things it can do is nothing, so it just sends an email. One of the things that it can do is it can lock that site down as read-only, so that gets people's attention pretty quickly if it's an active site. The other thing it can do is just archive the site. If it fails one of these sites, if you just throw it off to archive. So there's a lot of great things here. One of the things I want to call your attention to is that these policies all have a simulate option, which just runs the policy, but only tells you. So this is a good thing to do as you're starting to, you've just bought SAM. It still has that new SAM smell about it. You're running the policies, and you don't want to email the entire company because everybody's site is inactive or only has one owner or something. Run the simulation first, get an idea what you're dealing with, start cleaning some stuff up, and then make them active. So do that. So I really like this part. Again, we preach being, scaling by SharePoint, and this kind of gives you a little bit of your power back when you're scaling SharePoint by site. Have lots of sites. So I'm a fan.
Yeah, that's a really good summary. I love that. There was and sort of leading from this, there was a conversation in the chat about any opinions on SAM reports versus ShareGate reports that Todd, you answered from Tony, but that sort of led to a bigger discussion, which is sort of what we've been talking about here. Is a lot of what SAM is giving you is reporting, some little bit of actionable stuff, like you're talking about the attestation policy. Oh God, now I had to say it. So. Those things are great. Where ShareGate and Orchestry sort of fit into this SAM conversation is sort of more actionable things or more extensive reporting. And so if SAM is a great place to start. Exactly what you said in the chat, Todd, we start here, see what you can get going on it. And then if you're hitting walls or roadblocks, then start looking at, what does ShareGate give me? And what does maybe Orchestry give me? And where do those products maybe fit in to help me get to where I need to go as far as how you want to manage your organization? So I love that starting with SAM thing. So
a lot of the things that SAM does too is stuff that I know Todd and I have written PowerShell to do in the past.
Oh yeah.
Right. So now it's in the hand, it's available to people who don't write PowerShell. So that's a good thing. It may not be exactly what you want, but again, starting point.
Yeah. And because of Mark Anderson, I see every one of these questions as a maturity model thing. And so I definitely see SAM being the 100 level. And then, if you need past that, maybe you write custom PowerShell, maybe you get Orchestry, whatever, as you move up the maturity model.
Okay, cool. Let us move on. Demystify this new admin agent for us.
So this is one of those chocolate and peanut butter moments. This is mixing two of my favorite things, SharePoint administration and AI. And so as part of SAM now, SAM's been out for a while, but this is kind of a new thing. You have the SharePoint admin agent. So this is an agent that Microsoft has built. And if you've ever built any agents, you can do things like point agents at knowledge sources and give it system prompts to guide it as it's answering people. So Microsoft has written this agent for us, for SharePoint administrators. And it is available in all of the places that you love to use Copilot. So you can go to office.com and access it there. If you go into the SharePoint admin, and I think the M365 admin, there's a button there that lights it up. Or if you're into talking to agents in Teams, you can do it in there. I actually don't do that. For whatever reason, it's kind of creepy. But it's available all there. It's just a regular agent. I love a bunch of things about this. So Mark was just talking about how, Mark, he and I used to write PowerShell to do complicated tasks, and now Sam's got some reports about complicated tasks. We're now a little farther up the stack. Now we can just use natural language about these tasks. How many of my sites are using everyone except external users, that kind of stuff. And you can just type the question out and let the LLMs figure out what you mean, get you the information back, all of that. So one of the things that I really like about this is we've got our starter prompts, and I picked a bad picture here for that. But there are 3 starter prompts that I've already forgotten. But when I do talks about writing agents and SharePoint agents and all that, I always talk about how important those starter prompts are. They make a really easy way for people to find common information, but they also give your agent users some idea what the agent can do, just kind of open up their imagination a little bit. So I always encourage people to have starter prompts do that. The SharePoint folks have taken that a step further. And when you use the Copilot thing, there's a view prompts button at the bottom in your prompt box that has a whole menu of prompts that are set up for you. And they're categorized, like storage and users and usage and all that. And you can find and you can drill through this list and it will give you these prompts like show all my sites that have everyone except external users. So things that you would just never think about, you can figure out just by viewing all these prompts that they've already set up for us. So love that. Love that. One of the sticking points about this, if you're like me, you're really excited about all this SAM stuff. I did not have access to SAM until last week. So in the Sympraxis tenant, I'm a user, but not an admin, and I have Copilot, so I can't get into any of that stuff. In my personal tenant, I'm an admin, but I didn't have Copilot. So in the next slide, I'll talk about how to light SAM up, but I did all of that. All of these reports, or all of the stuff that this agent is grounded on, is the reports that we've been talking about for the last 25 minutes. That's where it gets its information. So what you can't do is light all this stuff up and then run right over quick like a bunny to the admin agent and start asking a bunch of questions because it doesn't have the information for it yet. So you have to be prepared with that. And also with that, the information the agent gives you is only as good as when you ran the last report. So be aware of that as you're using these. And for this to work, I know Derek talked about it earlier, but you have to have that SAM admin role in Intra ID to get this stuff to light up. So I've had to get that. I've had to have that role even though I was a global admin and a SharePoint admin in a tenant, but just always check that one.
So I think we've answered Caleb's question about is the admin agent supposed to be able to read our SAM reports and extract the data from them? And clearly that is the answer to that. So that's
exactly what it's grounded on. Yep.
On.
Oh, and also, so as part of that admin agent, in the slide next, it's got all the links. There's a great link about the admin agent that tells you how it works and all the great stuff it does and gives you ideas how to use it.
All right, we'll point that out on the resources slide.
All right. The question you've all been having, you're all whipped into a lather about the SharePoint.
Oh, we don't have time.
Oh.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
How do you get all this magic? This was one of those things where when we were slicing the slides up in preparation for this, Julie was like, whoever wants to talk about the licensing, take a step forward, and everybody else step back. And I was just kind of out there. It's really convoluted. It's really silly. For one thing, you have to have a user that has a base license. So like an Office 365 E3 or an M365 E1, you probably have that. Then you need either somebody who's licensed for SAM or any other user that's licensed for Copilot. And the reason for that is because as soon as you light up Copilot, then a bunch of the Copilot management stuff shows up in SharePoint admin, things like defining dictionaries and stuff like that. Obviously, the admins need to be able to control that if users are using Copilot. So that lights up most of the stuff inside of SAM, but not all of it. If you have a regular user that's licensed for Copilot, then your SAM user gets the Copilot admin agent we talked about, even if they don't have a Copilot license. Very confusing. We did mention earlier the PowerShell does get to work into this. So once you have the SAM licensing and all that stuff lit up, there are some PowerShell commandlets with the SharePoint management shell that you can use to set stuff. Honestly, I don't use it because I like using the AI. It's just a lot more fun. So the other thing, again, I will say is I lit this up a few days ago in my own tenant so I could play with it. It's not quite done baking yet. Pieces and parts started showing up as days would go by. So if you're going to use this, number one, buy it soon, don't wait. And number two, just know that you might have a 3 or 4 day getting to know
is
me
it
phase.
not done baking like raw chicken, or is it not done baking like gooey center brownies?
The former, not the latter. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, all right. So yeah, so
Oh,
poisoning could
don't
happen.
be
Gotcha.
don't be confusing those two things in your kitchen either.
No, that's a terrible mistake to make. But the good news is, get your Copilot license. It'll start to show up.
This reminds me of the time that I doubled a batch of cookies and forgot to double the flour and ended up with these running cookies, but man, were they good.
Yeah, so Cashman
Anyway.
puts a good question in the chat. Where does all of this agenty stuff fill in with PowerShell and all of that? I'm still kind of feeling that out, especially because like skills just showed up here a few months ago. So that's the idea of having reusable things. Because one of the great powers of PowerShell is you can write a script and it will do the same thing over and over again with minimal work. Whereas if you're prompting stuff, you have to type the same prompt and guide all the stuff every time.
Then it's not deterministic, so you might not get the same answer.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the other interesting thing about it is if to have a skill, you have to write that skill. To write that skill, you have to know what it is you want that skill to do.
You have to process, yeah.
So in other words, the thing that's sometimes missing in that equation is the imagination part. Like, well, what do I want a skill to be able to do? And if you're a SharePoint admin of one in a smaller or mid-sized organization, I'm not picking on you, but you may not know what to ask that skill to do. I think if the community starts building skills that can be given, sort of a skills library, if you will, that are of general use, that could be really cool. Because I think
Zach has that,
writing a skill
And
is
Zach
a skill.
has that, yeah. And to Todd's point, Zach has that and has started that, and so that's going to be a good resource. I don't know if we included that resource, but since we are kind of out of time, let's. Oh yeah, it was in two shows ago, one show ago. I can't remember. All right, here's a bunch of resources. We wanted to point out which one did we want to point out? The demo and video from the AI-ready SharePoint admin agent. Okay. Yep. And then June 24th, Forms Life Beyond InfoPath Retirement is our next show, since InfoPath Retirement is happening.
I think that's a ball floating in a pool, which is greater than something else.
Over the sunset, I think. That is sunset. I'm playing charades with Mark Cashman, and I'm winning. All right.
I think this is why we'll reserve what the actual emoji means, so you have to tune in on the next Ask Sympraxis, where we reveal
there you go.
everything.
The meaning of that coin in water. So we will be in force at TechCon 365 Chicago next week. Yeah, all of us, basically. And then TechCon 365 Seattle is myself and Derek and Patrick and Mark. And then Collab Days New England registration, we're hoping, is going to be early July. We have all the sessions picked. We're trying to get the agenda together, yada, yada, get everybody to accept their sessions. And so that is going to hopefully, like I said, registration opened on we think about July 1st. So hopefully that will happen, and we will all see you in New England in October, excuse me. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see you again on June 24th. Thank you so much for joining us this week on Ask Sympraxis. We love getting your questions or session ideas. You can submit by using the link in About. If you find this helpful, hit that like or subscribe button and share this content with your colleagues.